This is PK Entertainment, and we are back again. And we're now going to do a season premiere review of Stargirl. This is the latest live action adaptation of DC Universe characters. It originally debuted on the DC Universe streaming app, but it will also air on the CW network, consisting of 13 episodes. It follows the adventures of a young female teenager called Courtney Whitmore. Over time, we see her adjusting to her life of becoming an age story, as she eventually discovers a cosmic staff which exhibits various powers alike and gives her certain abilities for her to eventually assume the mantle of Stargirl to inspire a new group of Justice Society of American superheroes, following the tradition of the original Justice Society group, which is a very much of an iconic team within the mythology of DC Comics. It originally stars Brett Bassinger in the lead role as Courtney, but it also stars more well-known actors such as Luke Wilson in the role as Pat Dugan, who is Courtney's stepfather and the original sidekick of the original Justice Society team, and also stars Amy Smart as Courtney's mother. And again, over the course of the series, we're going to see her adjust to her new life and build a further connection with Courtney and Pat on here. So overall, I thought this was a very good, very bright, optimistic premiere and episode to begin with for a new series on here. It was very brisk, it was very charming, it was very light-hearted, nothing too intense, nothing too violent on here, and overall it's a very pleasing and just very accessible opener to this new series. So I'm going to go a bit more into spoiler territory now, just quickly. So if you haven't seen the episode, you probably want to switch off now, watch the episode, and come back into this review. So what was good about it? So first of all, you had a truly epic opening prologue scene where we begin with Pat, played by Luke Wilson. He's in this car chase, he goes to his house, it's all consumed by this green fire, and we enter a truly epic fight sequence here where we see the kind of original members of the Justice Society encountering various supervillains, and this is fantastic. This is really comic book imagination at its finest, when we see various abilities and energy waves and projectiles all being used, all being great out here. We get various name drops throughout, such as Wildcat and Brainwave and Icicle, and we're kind of just name dropping the various characters and the original members of the Justice Society as they're in this ongoing battle. It's truly magnificent, and I'll give kudos to the showrunners for really going all out to try and give you an epic kind of outstanding set piece to try and draw you in. And I always feel that should be the case for any kind of superhero or action show. When you have the premiere episode, it always should have or begin with a standout sequence, and that, as I said before, enables you to draw you in to the story and keep you excited for what's going to follow on next. So fantastic sequence throughout on here. This is when they really use the budget to its full capacity. As the battle ensues, we then come across the original Starman character who's wielding the cosmic staff, and he gets fatally wounded in the final battle, and as he's on his final stages before he dies, he passes on the staff to Pat, telling him that to keep it in safe keeping in eventual wait for someone who is deemed worthy enough to pick up the mantle and go forward for the new generation of heroes. So this is very typical superhero stuff, you know, the original wielder of the weapon, final battle, dies, and then makes some sort of proclamation or prophecy that there'll be a new hope, a new wielder for the weapon going forward for the future. No, it's typical stuff we've seen all the time, so that's all very fine. We jump forward 10 years, now we see that Pat has taken on Courtney as his stepdaughter, and he's married to Barbara Whitmore, played by Amy Smart, and they're just adjusting to their new life in Nebraska. And we get these earlier scenes of the small town village and Courtney adjusting to life within the village, within the school, and all of these echoes were taking you back to Smallville. If you remember, Smallville has that very kind of glossy, high school, sheeny kind of look about it. Also, if you go back to the 90s teens dramas of Dawson's Creek, all that kind of typical aesthetic on here, as we see Courtney trying to adjust and trying to make new friends or come across various bullies. It just takes me back to the typical 80s movies, if you like, Teen Wolf and Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire, all that kind of typical familiar territory that we're involved with, those teenager-esque kind of storylines and story beats on here. Nothing wrong with it. Again, this is just familiarity. We move forward, and really the story moves forward when we see Courtney go into the house basement and she comes across the cosmic staff. And what they did on there was very good. They gave the cosmic staff a kind of a personality, very similar to what we saw in the Doctor Strange movie within the MCU, when Doctor Strange has the cloak, and also if you like with Aladdin, when Aladdin has the carpet. The weapon has its own personality, and it's pulling and pushing Courtney to all these different locations. We see her flying with the weapon. We see her, she's a former gymnast, so she's kind of using it to flip over and pirouette and somersault. So I really like these scenes. It just gives an extra dynamic to the weapon, as opposed to Courtney just taking the weapon and just mastering it straight away. It seems like they're going to go on this sort of progression with her to master her abilities and master the common manipulation with the weapon. So that's all great. She comes across bullies that she encountered earlier on in the episode. They're annoying this group who are trying to sit and watch the drive-in movie. She initially just wants to slash their bullies' tyres within their car, but the weapon kind of takes a place on its own, and she's like blowing up the car and beating up all the bullies. And then the staff takes her back to the house. Pat discovers that Courtney's found out about the staff, and then we get the exposition about the Justice Society, who they were, where they come from, the origin, how Pat was just more of a sidekick. His name was Stropesy, and he had a good relationship with the original Starman, who we find out is Courtney's father. Pat tries to kind of fob Courtney off, but he can't. She's very strong resolve, very determined to find out the truth about her father, and again just wanting to know more about her destiny and whether she can wield the weapon. And this was all good, and I really like these scenes in particular with Courtney and Pat on it. It's a very good strong and bond between the father and daughter. I'm also happy that they gave Courtney a much more of a positive mindset. It would have been so typical and so cliched if they made her just a typical angry, angst-ridden teenager who hates everybody. She hates life. She doesn't want to talk to everybody. She's always angry at her stepfather. Now, they did have that at the beginning where she was kind of rejecting his attempts to try and make a bond with her, but I'm glad that they didn't maintain that throughout the episode, because for me that would have really put me off the characters. But good performances by the likes of both Brett Bassinger and Owen Wilson. You know, this is a very likeable pairing, and I'm sure the chemistry will continue on throughout the whole episode on here. We just had the last development where we found out that one of the bullies was the son of one of the original villains that took on the Justice Society in that original sequence. And I believe this villain was Brainwave. He has the ability to kind of tap into people's thoughts and predict what they're thinking. And yeah, to be fair, it was a bit predictable. You once the bully showed up for the second time in the drive-in and he was fighting her, okay, you kind of knew, yeah, that's going to be the son of the original villain. You kind of knew that was going on. So he was quite, or he had a menacing presence about him. That was a very good encounter that we got later on when Courtney takes him on and the staff manages to put her away as she's getting overpowered. And then we get the final scene where she looks up in the field and then she sees the 15-foot robot that was built by Pat, and that's eventually going to come into play for everyone. And that's very comic book accurate. If you know anything more about your DC comics, or if you're a major Stargirl fan, you'll be very happy at the kind of faithfulness that they showed in the aesthetic and the look of the robot. It accurately reflects the source material. If not, I'm sure anybody who watched the iconic and amazing Justice League Unlimited show where Stargirl appeared in certain episodes, again, that robot design reflects the look, and that's fantastic. That's exactly what you want. You want to see in any of these live action adaptations a correct reflection now of the source material. There's no excuses now why we can't have these live action interpretations looking very similar to how they are from the comic books. You know, that's good, and very happy that they took that approach on here. So it was very good. It was very brisk. It was very light-hearted fun. The action sequences are very good, as were the special effects. So I was very pleased that the producers put a lot of money and effort into making sure the show had a very good dynamic energy about it in terms of the action sequences. As I mentioned before, all the actors so far are very likable. Brett Bassinger, okay, she did quite well. I think for a premiere episode, she showed enough of a rootable character about her, and I'm sure over the course of the season we're going to see a lot more of the trials and tribulations that she goes through as she's adjusting more to the cosmic staff, and we're going to see her eventually take on the costume. And over the course of the season, we're going to see a lot more of the new members of the so-called Justice Society of America. I hope they don't launch into that straight away. I hope they give us time to learn about each character as they come into contact with Courtney and perhaps gain their own special abilities. I hope they don't just thrust us into the team by the third episode. Let's see a much more of a development. We have 13 episodes, so there's no reason to kind of just rush developments throughout. Let's take our time and actually get to know these characters. And just a quick note on that, it actually did a much better job in terms of a pilot episode as what we saw to the more established CW shows, whether it was The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow. All of those had very rushed premieres. They kind of wanted to get to the status quo straight away. So hopefully that Stargirl takes its time. At the same time, doesn't drag its feet, but at the same time just lets us see these developments develop naturally and organically. So I loved it all. I love the very bright kind of scenery towards it. Again, it's very good to have a show that has that much more of a escapism and adventurism tone to it. Very bright, optimistic tone. You know, veer away from this whole dark, gritty, realistic take. Now, for certain characters that work, but it doesn't work for all characters. And I don't think it's an appropriate fit for Stargirl. So I'm very happy that they adopted this more, very kind of bright, cheerful, spirited tone. This show seems going to have a lot more heart and soul about it. Again, I refer to the previous shows, Smallville, The Flash, Supergirl. They had that too, that very kind of heartwarming, cheery, you know, bright tone about it, and I think that's going to put the show in good stead going forward on it. So, yep, overall, very pleased. I can't really complain too much. Okay, maybe there was a few moments that are a bit cheesy. There's a very kind of Disney feel to it, if you like, and some moments were a bit predictable. I've read some reviews saying that maybe the Justice Society origin was a bit rushed, but we'll get that through the series. We'll get more and more in depth. I'm pretty sure we'll get an entire episode where we see the Justice Society, how they come to form together, and how they took on the various villains. So that was very interesting, and again, the brainwave villain looked very intense look about him, so that was a promising touch. And also he made contact with, I think, with Icicle as well. I think that's his name. That's who he was talking to, notify him that the staff has come into prominence yet again. They originally thought they destroyed the Justice Society, but now they're a bit worried that they've kind of re-emerged. So we're going to see further developments on that. So, yep, overall very pleased with this. Very bright, very optimistic. And yep, I will be keeping track of this series and watching it throughout. And if there's further episodes stand out, I will make reference to that. Just on a final footnote for anybody that doesn't know, even though this is a CW, or it's airing on the CW network, and yes, it will be connected in the Arrowverse, currently this is taking place on a separate Earth as opposed to the other shows, which, as we know from the Crisis, are all merged together in one Earth. This is kind of like on a separate parallel Earth, Earth 2 if you like. So I think that's good. Again, just like they did with the first season of Supergirl, they're going to allow the show to establish its own identity first, and then once it can build a good connection, hopefully be successful and garner a good reception, then in season 2 and season 3, if it ever gets that far, we can then eventually see it crossing over with the other shows. I think that's always the best tactic to look. Don't let it be burdened down by having to cross over straight away. Let it find its own identity first, and then later on interact with the other characters within the Arrowverse going forward. So all very good on here. So those are my overall thoughts on Stargirl premiere. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? How did you compare it to the other premiere episodes of the previous CW superhero shows? Do you think this will be a good fit? Did you like Brett Bassinger's performance in the lead role? Do you like the overall aesthetic, the overall tone and direction of the show? Do you think it's a good, accurate reflection of the comic book mythology in terms of the Justice Society and in terms of Stargirl's costume and particularly the striped robot and how it looks on here. So let me know what you think in the comments below. But those are my thoughts for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very soon.